谁这个张谁？
不能说话呀，可以说。
随便来到这个地方。
发短信吗？
那是什么？那有个标志。这个是纪念加拿大的这些战士，一战、二战、朝鲜战争，以及加拿大所有维和活动里面牺牲的战士。后面这个小桥也蛮好看的。我觉得这个
The museum. His home.
Yeah.
And because when I lived in Beijing for 16 years,
Yeah.
and whenever I would get in a taxi, he would turn to me and go, "Ah, Megwaran." I go, "Busher." And he go, "Ah, Bethune."
Yeah.
But anyway, so I worked in Toronto.
Yeah.
I lived in Gravenhurst, and I worked in Sudbury. And people from Southern Ontario, when they come up north of Barrie, right, they look on the map and they think, oh, it's going to take us a day to get there, right? or a very short period of time. No. So have a chair, take your coats off, and
Okay.
I'll be right with you in a moment.
Okay.
Yes, it is. Sure.
Apparently outside.
Yeah.
你也去吧。Okay. What is?
I saw this picture and I thought it's small. I didn't know it's that big.
It's that big, yeah.
There's a small museum inside, right?
Yeah, it's more just for Canada Day and other events that we have here. The Lions Club is the caretaker of it, and they'll let people walk through.
But right now it's locked.
I believe so, yes, because every train that used to go through here had that on the back end of it for the conductor, they called it, to ride in the back end. And he watched the back end of the train, and the engineer with his mirrors could see the front end of the train. But about the mid-'80s, they stopped using that because now they have electronic monitoring at the back of the train, so they don't need a person back there.
So this at the end of the train.
Yes.
Is the car just for to observe
To observe the train, yeah.
the train?
Because on straight pieces, he could see if there's trouble in the train further ahead. Yeah. Yeah. And there's sleeping quarters, like, because used to be the run of the train would be like 12 hours, you know, so they would take a sleep in there when they were going long distances. Like the first time, it seems longer too. But if you do it all the time, it's not too bad.
Yeah, it wasn't so bad.
Yeah.
So we left like 6:30ish this morning.
In the winter, You never know what you're going to hit around Barrie and where Peter lives at Dravenhurst there. It likes to snow hard there. So,
Peter lives far away from here.
yeah, it's for him about a 2-hour drive.
Dravenhurst.
Every day?
No, he stays up here for 3 days, and he works up here 3 days a week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then he works from home Monday and Friday. So, yeah, he stays here. It would be
How many people in that township?
in our township, 2,000.
2,000.
Yeah, because it's a rural township. Like there's 2 small towns, this one and Rutherglen, but both of them each only have about 400 people. Most of our people live either on the lakes, because we have 2 large lakes and a bunch of small lakes.
So the Nosbonsing
Yes.
and Nipissing.
Well, in Nipissing doesn't touch our township. This is Nosbonsing. The water you hear right there is we're the outlet. We're the east end of Nosbonsing. So that's what they call the Cabascong River there, which is a mouthful, but but that's water coming out of Lake Nosbonsing.
It's like a pool, huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
And that water goes to Lake Talon, which is the other big lake we have in our...
Lake Talon. Then go to the
This one you call it a river?
Ottawa River.
Yes, that's right.
So they used to have the lump flow from here, right?
That's right.
Lumber.
Yep, logs and things.
Transport, right? Used to be
Yes, that's right.
the major transportation means.
The more on Lake Talon going east towards Ottawa than from here, because the reason this town is here, there was a large mill here to turn the logs into lumber already, and they take them out on the train. You know? So
that's why I see the water, right? It's really powerful because it's steep, right?
yeah,
It's made a good meal here.
there's a. If you have time, we could go for a little walk. That's just kind of the overflow. We'll just walk to the bridge there, if you don't mind getting.
Yeah, let's go.
Wet just a little bit. There's some beautiful.
Local indigenous language.
I believe based on their pronunciation.
West and east. Can't tell, there's no sun. And that's where up here, like I farm, and in the south, when I talk to other farmers, they'll say, well, your farm, how many acres? I say, well, it's a 100-acre farm, but like 10 of it is this, you know, like it's no good.
Can't plant anything.
And they say, well, how can you have that much rock on your farm?
You see the change, the color? So other side, right? When you for example, all the leaves fell, right? You see the tree here, the cider. Yeah.
Yeah, it's more green. It's greener.
We have the cedar.
Cedar's fruit.
Yeah, cedar.
That's a pine.
It's famous Canadian.
There's a lot of water goes over there in the day too, and that's all out of Lake Nosbonsing, all of it. We can go back to the office.
Doctor.
Doctor?
Doctor is better, yeah.
Dr. Xiaoming, okay. You've already had a welcome from the mayor, so maybe you could start, introduce your group and what you hope to do here today.
Okay, so I taught some course in Bonfield. That's my last job. Okay.
Wilfrid Laurier,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
an alumni.
Okay. Okay, good. I taught some computer science and business. Yeah. However, my PhD is in physics from McGill. And now, for a long time, I try to encourage this Chinese Canadian, okay, to identify ourselves with the Canada, okay, because they just cannot think about it because in the history, the history because the Exclusion Act, okay, Chinese Exclusion Act and head tax, they don't they cannot identify themselves with the Canada, okay. So that's the history. The history past. However, the tradition is still going on. Okay, they don't think it's the home or something. So that's why I try to promote, say, okay, let us remember we have the Chinese to have a contribution to build the Canada, our country, because the Canadian Pacific Railway. Okay, so that's why I say, okay, because not the last bite is on BC, the other side. Okay, in I think it's 2014, I drive to there, BC, Kamloops, and from Kamloops to the Riverstone. Okay, the Kicking Horse Valley. Okay, I drive there. So, but not far away, we have a huge community in Toronto, right? And so that's why I say, maybe I shall find out where is the first bike. And that's why I will come up here today.
When I first came here 4 years ago, I saw the railway caboose out there. I just thought, okay, it's a railway caboose. And one morning, I was having coffee out here by myself, and I was looking at the things on the wall, and it said, Bonfield, Canadian National Railway of Fame, first spike. And I went, what? So I Googled it, and I was really surprised, because I thought it would be in Atlantic Canada, somewhere on the Atlantic Ocean, right? And we had some government officials from Ottawa here 3 years ago, and they saw the caboose, and they asked me, so I told them first spike. They went, no. Yes.
Kabul is still there, or?
Yeah, the railway car caboose.
It's refurbished.
Yes.
Yeah.
What's how old is that, Randy? Where did that come from?
Oh, I don't know, to be honest, but I would think those cars were made in the 50s. It probably says on it somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
It's in 50, not in 1882.
No, the caboose, I mean, was made in the 50s, likely.
Yeah.
They had different versions of them. They used to be made out of wood, but that's
Oh, yeah.
one.
Who's type?
Well, that's mine.
Recognized it.
So, Doctor, you're trying to develop a positive feeling amongst Canadian Chinese about their role in the history of this country.
Right.
And
So they can be more patient. Okay?
Exactly.
Yeah. Otherwise, because before, right? They think the July 1st is the humiliation day. Okay, because in that day they passed the Chinese Exclusion Act.
Yeah.
Okay, so for almost 30 years. So then it's like now we say, okay, we are Canadian. Okay. It's the only citizenship. Canadian is my only citizenship. Okay, I don't have other citizenship. Okay, so however, it's like I think it's one thing is educate our Chinese Canadian ourselves, the community, and also for the large society, say, accept Chinese, because right now people still think if they see my name is in Chinese name, okay, they don't think I'm Canadian. They think you're Chinese. If I say something, oh, you are Chinese or something like that, it's like it still have some
Stigma.
yeah, something is not quite right. Something is not quite right. That's one thing. The other thing is like we Canada have a lot of resource for tourism. Okay, and many tourists, Chinese tourists, come to Toronto, and I think this is a good resource for the tourists come to here and have a visit. That's a
Well, as I mentioned to you or Bo, I live in the weekends in Gravenhurst, and from May 24th till Thanksgiving, every weekend, hundreds of Chinese people, and Bonfield is only an hour and 3/4 from Gravenhurst. They could come up here easily.
right. And that's what I think. Yeah, they should, if they visit the
Bethune House.
Bethune House, they can come up here. It's,
Make a day trip.
Sure, absolutely.
Easy.
Yeah.
Well, they come up this way for the color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, in the fall.
Yeah.
That's Dr. Gore's one of the plan. He wanted to set it up one day tour routine. If Bonfield first bike was designated, we even wanted to invite some tourist agent management to come to explore this area with us, but they couldn't arrange it just because of the time.
Short notice.
Yes. And I don't know, I didn't talk to you about this and whether the mayor did, but just so you understand or where you know where we're at with the designation.
Yeah.
We filed an application with Parks Canada a year ago to have Bonfield recognized as a historical site.
Yeah.
And when I called them on the phone to tell them or ask them what do I need to do, the lady that answered the phone said to me, "We've been expecting your call. What took you so long? Because the one out west, the last spike, was done 30 years ago as a designation." So anyway, the mayor sent a letter and we filed an application. The reason why it's not done yet is because one of the things they want us to tell them is where in Bonfield, and we don't know. I mean, there's no agreement from everyone as to where that is. So I've been talking to the manager of Railway Archives for CPR in Calgary. He and the president of CPR want us to do this, and they're trying to help. But that's so we're waiting to get that, and then Parks Canada will approve us as a historical site, and then there will be a plaque here, and we'll have some place where people can go. But right now, when you and I were talking on the phone, I said there's no place to visit at the moment, and that's why.
How many places people were talking about there's possible access?
Well, I was saying to the deputy mayor, I think 2 or 3. I know Elmer has one site.
We're all pretty certain and in agreement on the site. And it's the one that Elmer largely believes to be the site. The problem with it is it's not tourist friendly. It's kind of out in the bush, you know, and it's right behind where the potential mill complex is going to go. So, like for a tourist, it's a hiking tour more than anything else. Like you have to walk down the track to see that particular area right now. And I think, and I wasn't on council for the few years there that the first spike initiative was so active, but I think all that Heritage Canada or anybody is asking is just pick one, you know? Like if it's within a kilometre either way, they don't care. Just pick a spot, is what they're saying. Yeah.
She did eventually say that to me. I said, what if we can't agree on where it is? She said, doesn't matter. There is agreement. It was Bonfield, so pick a spot.
Right. I think, but still, we want to visit that site. You say even we walk.
The real site, yeah, sure.
Yeah, the real site. We want to visit there, and we want to listen the story about that site. How you find out it's not the site.
Okay.
Is it possible? Is it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we could walk there. That's
Yeah, that's what
Yeah.
we come from far away. That's what we really want to know. Yeah, we really want to know. We want you first you tell the story, okay? How you find that spot is the first spike and in which resource we hear that and something.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you take
Yeah, it wouldn't hurt to. I know where he's talking about there. It's just east of Trout Pond Road, about a kilometer down the track. But
if you pick one spot, do you have to provide the supporting document, or you?
a lot of that work has already been done, and that's where there was some disagreement when they had the first spike initiative underway, because Canadian Pacific Railway didn't exist at the time. That's an amalgamated company out of a bunch of smaller railways that were the constructors of the railroad.
The Central Railway.
Yeah, a lot of those records, of course, are non-existent now. But when they did their homework on trying to determine and prove that we were the first spike, it wasn't CP Rail. It was another smaller railway that CP Rail renamed itself into later. You know, but
Is not Canada Central?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
Canada Central Railway. And, but anyway, the construction site, and as Doug has mentioned, there's significant evidence to support the fact that it started there, in that the person that owns that particular piece of land now, there is a great deal of artifacts there, like rusty equipment and things that you could tell it was a construction yard at a point in time.
See.
And it's all overgrown with trees and that now, but as you dig around a little bit, you can tell that that was where something major started, you know, back in the day. Like construction projects happen everywhere now, but when you start a construction project in the middle of the bush, back then that was a big thing, you know.
So is the railway track past not the site?
Yes, yeah, well, yeah, it's still
Okay.
exactly where it started.
So this story is the owner of the land tell the story.
No, well, he's as curious as you are, and I am, because he's only owned it about 10 years, and he didn't know when he bought it that that could be anything there, you know, so
I see.
he just knows he had a piece of railway track at the back of his house, so.
It is supposed to,
Well,
still there.
the track is still there, and the reason that these spikes and all kinds of things started to appear was he was clearing land with his, he has a front end loader, and he was pushing the trees back, and all of a sudden all these iron chunks start to come up out of the ground, you know, and they're all railway related. So when people in our township heard about that, and they said, well, that's because you're where it all started, you know, so. There's other evidence too that Elmer could speak to better than me. I'm speaking of a fellow who used to work for CP Rail, and in his retirement he's taken quite an interest in trying to build all this information into a package. But there's evidence further east too, in his opinion, of a great number of horses and things like the graves of horses, you know, that were used in the construction and everything. When a horse died, you didn't take it too far away, you just buried it where it was beside the track. So from his research that he's done, it seems to prove his theory that that's the spot.
Maybe the university, some archaeologists can do further research on that side, I think. Maybe give some proposal to those maybe university. They may bring some student and graduate student do some sidewalk, field works.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Yeah.
That's a good idea.
Yeah, do some field work, further research. Okay, so I think it's about. I think it's should be somewhere around here, definitely. Okay, so as far as I know, is the Canada Central Railway try to build the railway from that's the Ottawa, okay, on the Ottawa River, the Ottawa, right, the city, to Nipissing, okay, and maybe when they build somewhere around here, then the Pacific take over, then it's begin. I think that's as far as my hypothesis.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, interestingly, this spot that I'm speaking of is almost mathematically in the middle of Mattawa and Nipissing.
Right.
So there's some reason
Right.
that
Makes perfect
that
sense.
spot is there.
Yeah, and all the I think the literature, the history literature is called this. Say this, okay? They say it's on this calendar, okay? Before, yeah.
We were just speaking earlier when we were outside about Calendar Station, and we were Calendar Station at a point in time, and he said when they were driving up they saw a calendar, so we talked about that a little bit, and I said, well, I think that's because when they took the station and put it in Calendar, they just called it Calendar Station after and left this one with no name basically at all, because that was the new Calendar Station, you know, over there. But now we've become Bonfield Station. But
In the National Dream, Pierre Burton, it talks about Calendar Station and that location.
Right.
But interesting enough, I didn't know this until I talked to CPR in Calgary, that there is a group called the National Legacy Association. They're all former railway people. They say it was not Bonfield, that it's a site in eastern Manitoba. And they've been arguing with the government, the federal government, and with CPR to recognize that there's a possibility that it's not Bonfield. I've never heard that until he told me this, but and they're not giving it any credence.
No, the story is like this, okay? It's in 1872, okay, because the scandal, okay, the Conservative Party, the government, first grant the contract to a company, okay, then it's a scandal, then it stepped down, the Liberal take the government, right? The Liberal is it's a government project, it's not contract to the private to build, okay. So in that 10 years, okay, then they begin to, the project still going on, okay, so because the project is as a promise to the BC province, say we have to build the railway, so they joined the Confederation, right? So the government bill is from the Thunder Bay to Winnipeg, okay, so not part, they already built about it's 1,000 kilometers, maybe when the Conservative take over again, try to grant this contract to private syndicate to build it, and that section about 500 already operation, okay. So if from time, if you count by time, maybe that's the first byte. However, that's not the Pacific Railway, because the Pacific Railway syndicate is not existing yet, right? So when the syndicate organized, okay, they say, okay, we have the fund, we get the grant from the policy from the government, the government give it the land or something is really very profitable. Okay, people want to get the contract. So they also combine this section, okay, and some of this Canada Central Railway, okay, so together. So actually it's counted first by, why the first by count here is because when they organize this syndicate, and from here, okay, not the way they have to connect with the Canada Central Railway. That's the point. That's called Bonfield. Yeah.
You know, Mr. Mayor, I'm thinking that what I need to do is finish up the application,
Yeah.
give it to Dr. Xiaoming, and you take it to Ottawa and you tell him why it's going on. I think that would convince them right there. You know so much about Canadian history. That's great.
Yeah.
He has very powerful, very strong research
Yes,
ability.
yes.
His profession, his major is in physics, but he know everything out of that.
I can tell that. So, Doctor, assume for a moment that we agree it's Bonfield and we have a site.
Yeah.
When Bo and I talked on the phone, your group, you have an idea, or you want to talk about an idea about somehow commemorating the role of Chinese immigrants in building this national railway. Is that correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. If it's a historic site and some exhibition hall, we want it at least mention the Chinese railway workers. Okay, even it's far away in BC, but not the whole.
That's the Pacific Railway.
Yeah, the Pacific Railway. Okay, connect this our country, right? Yeah.
But do you have an idea what kind of commemoration might be appropriate here in Bonfield or in this part of Ontario?
I think it's
Like a statue or an exhibit somewhere, a part of a museum?
should have a statue and should have a exhibition hall, museum, some material.
Should have an official
Yeah.
official commemorating day,
It's
like
not-
Remembrance Day.
Yeah, it cannot designate it exclusively for the Chinese railway worker. It has to be, say, the Pacific Railway, okay,
Right.
emphasized. But the Chinese railway workers have to be mentioned. Some section of the exhibit, right? Maybe 10% the exhibition material have to be at least more than 10%.
Well,
something
again,
like that.
Pierre Burton, in his book, The National Dream, or the other one, maybe the first spike, said that without the Chinese workers, it wouldn't have been built, or could not have been built the way it was in the time frame. It could not have happened.
That's true.
Could not happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, because maybe I can, if I can talk with my
No problem.
my
Speech.
PowerPoint. Yeah.
Right now
Yes.
or later, or
Shall,
do we need to
shall
go?
we shall we go to the side and come back? We continue the.
We could.
The mayor has he's
No,
too kind.
that's okay, but, well, we have plenty of time for that, but, maybe it's better if we do the PowerPoint first and then we go there and then I can leave
You
from
can
there
go
and go
from there,
east,
yeah,
yeah.
Okay. Okay. So we do.
But if we go there later, it will be dark.
Yeah.
But
2 hours. The mayor has a meeting in Mattawa at 4 o'clock.
Okay.
So he can go to that meeting from there. If we do
Right.
this first and then go there, we can go there from that.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So make it
It's a formal report. It's 600. However, it's I think because the general manager made the report, right? They just minimize it on the side. Okay, so actually it's 4,000. 4,000.
That man now works for President Trump.
Okay. So okay. So today is November 7, right? That's the I just want to emphasize the significance of this passive railway for our nation building, right? So now it's the
Oh, I didn't know that. You
Today.
picked today.
Today,
yeah today.
Wow.
That's why I
Good research. You picked today, huh?
yeah. So that's why we take
Good for
today
you.
to come here. Yeah. So I think
Yeah, that's the one
this
I
looks
picked.
like Chinese railway. This one looks
very
like
front.
okay.
Same hat.
So because the hair, the hair is looks like very familiar for me.
Even the guy on the other side there too.
Okay, so so actually the significance is like one is about nation building. Okay. The second thing is about the industrial revolution. The two things is connect with the railway. So this we have the arm of Canada. You see the Latin here. Okay, it's from sea to sea. Okay, from sea to sea is the if you don't have the railway.
Latin, it's the Latin from sea to sea, right?
Yeah,
It's a
yeah,
Latin-
yeah,
It's a Latin
yeah.
from sea to sea.
Yeah,
yes.
this
Yeah, that's the Canadian model.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. Okay. So if you don't have the railway, you have to imagine at that time. Okay, at that time we use the waterway, okay, and this Quebec ferry, okay, the Surgeon A. MacDonald took this one to the conference, to the Charlton Convention, right? So it takes 12 days from Montreal to Kingston, upstream, right? Of course, downstream may be faster. So you can imagine if we want to have industry to produce in bulk, okay? We say the have to large scale. You cannot reach the market by this. It's very difficult. So at that time, seawater is really most important for us, for the fur trade and lump trade, all depending on seawater. And on land, we use the wagon. Okay, the wagon. If we take the wagon from Hamilton to Niagara Falls, it takes about 10 hours. Now, if you drive, just half hours, something like that. So it's and that time is like the whole country is. If you want to go into industry or try to become one identity of a country, you have to have the railway. Okay, that's the. Now, Canadian industry is. This picture I took at the Southwark at the Cambridge, and Cambridge is called Manchester of Canada. Okay, Manchester is the Industrial Revolution begin at the UK, right? So we can see this this drum. Okay, they use the bell to mill the Grand River water, okay, to drill the machine. Yeah. This the beginning they have some wooden, okay, the wood rail. This I took in Nova Scotia. This picture. They have a coal mine, okay, coal mine. They use this railway, and it's in Nova Scotia. Okay, they go to the sea, but it's very short from the mine to the shore. It's very short. So that's the second industrial revolution. Is really depend on this railway, steam engine railway. Okay. The second industrial revolution is the first industrial revolution is like in Manchester. It's really just is the apparel. Okay, you wear this clothes. Okay, that's the one. First you have the machine to do that. It's the Manchester. Okay, now the second is like the railway and many invention. One is the bell make the long distance call is in the Brandphone, you know, Brandphone. So that's the. Now, next time if you don't have the, we call nationalism. Nationalism right now is very close. It sounds like isolationist, right? So it's against the globalization. But at that time, nationalism is larger. It's like open market. Okay, nationalism is we want the market connected, huge. So like the Russia, okay, Russia they unite the German in 1871 because it's connect all the railway in the Europe. Okay, that's how it's done. Okay, it's not just Canada. It's German and America and Canada. All at that time is the nationalism. It is Sergeant A. MacDonald's national dream is the railway. Okay, national dream is the railway. And also is the dream because of the Industrial Revolution. Right. America is, we know before the Civil War is different, okay? Civil War, before and after, is after Civil War, is a nation. Before it's not. Before it's like EU now, right? Every state is one country. Every state have their own citizenship. You can have a California citizenship, but you may not get the visa, get the passport from America. You know, so it's the national building and Industrial Revolution together, all depending on this railway for the military transportation and the material, people, and especially the iron. Okay, the iron steel. You have the iron to put the rail, and have the rail can ship all this steel and iron to manufacture. That's from the manufacturer to the market. It's all depending on this railway. Now, talking about confederation, we really have three factors. Okay, one factor is like we know after Durham report, we have Canada. Okay, we have Canada in 1841, but it's not confederation. However, the Canada is not working because we have Upper Canada and Lower Canada. It's not talking, one talking in English, other talking in French. So now the union is not working, so they have to go confederation. Okay, so okay, you Quebec take care of your own business, Ontario take our own business, then we together take some business we all concern. That's the confederation. That's one thing. The other thing is Britain repealed the Corn Law. Okay, the Corn Law is the, at that time, depending on Corn Law, we call mercantilism. Mercantilism. Okay, mercantilism is like the economy of Canada is just an extension of the British Empire. Okay. Now, after Britain repealed the Corn Law, go to free trade. The parliament in London say, okay, you are yourself. We are not going to send army to protect you. Okay, you are not economically. You are not part of us right now. Okay, you are all free. It's a dominant. Okay, domination. Okay, we say. So now the colony, British North American colonies, say, okay, we have to take care of ourselves. However, each colony has so little of manpower. If you have the army, you don't have the revenue to support this army unless we confederate all together. So that's we confederate from the with the New Brunswick, Nova Scotia. Okay, the first 4 provinces, right? Now the 4 provinces, we have to say, okay, if we support our army, the army have to mobilize between these provinces, right? Otherwise, and how you mobilize? You cannot use the wagon. You cannot use the seaway, okay? When you use the seaway, your boat from Quebec go to Montreal, the battle already finished, okay? So, and also, we face a threat from the south, okay? The American annexed the Oregon Trail, okay? Have an Oregon Treaty, okay? Because the American purchased the Alaska, and they also want to purchase this Lubbock's land, okay? The Lubbock's land sell to the Canada, right, later. And they also annexed the Oregon Trail. So the BC is like they either be annexed by the America, or they have to be independent. It's no way. The Alaska is in the north. The south is already squeezed on the Oregon. And also the Fenian attack, okay, constant attack to Canada from the south. From the south. So Canada have the need, okay, to build the railway, so can have the army go through to protect, and especially the America build the transcontinental railway. They have the western expansion, okay, huge immigration settle in the westland. Once they have the settlement there, there is naturally expand to north, and we have no way to secure those land. We have no transport, no population there. Okay, of course, there are some population, but they are all indigenous people. They're helpless with the American army. They're helpless. So that's why we confederate Canada have many reasons. Okay, not single reason, many reasons. We have to do that. So, in order to confederate, we have to build a railway. Or in order to build a passive railway, we have to confederate. Otherwise, the investment didn't go in. People will not go in to invest, say, the railway. You have separate this colony, and politically it's not united. It's so many uncertainty, right? Even right now, the Trump put so many uncertainty. The people don't want to invest. They put the money, don't know where to put. They don't know if I put there and Trump say another thing, what you do, right? So they just hope there. So the same situation is like this. Okay. So the historians say, okay, the barn of the steel as well as the sentiment need to hold the new confederation together. So it is the 1867 we have the NBA, okay, the Act to Confederate Canada. It's on the paper. If we really want to do that, we have to build the railway. Otherwise, it's not there. It's just on the paper, okay, just on the paper. Now, in after the DNA Act, okay, British North American Act, and Canada purchased this Lubbock's land, okay, Lubbock's land on December 1st, a huge on the west. Right now, the three provinces, the Calgary, the Alberta, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, three provinces. If we don't have the railway, we cannot hold them. Okay, the South will eventually get it. Of course, is the other thing is, of course, the BC. Okay, so the BC is in other side of the Rocky Mountain. The Bay Company, how they get there? They don't get from here, okay? They get all the Roberts land, okay? And then other side, the Rocky Mountain, they go to ocean from Pacific, go there. They cannot go through. Okay, you can imagine, okay, if we have a parliament in Ottawa, and BC is one of our province without railway, okay, they have to take the ship to London, UK, and back, cross two ocean, and back to here. It is impossible, okay, if you don't build the railway. It's say, okay, it's one of our, it must be like Brazil and Peru, okay? So that's why the promise, okay? We promised to build a railway. However, you see by 1880s, is some railway was built from Thunder Bay to Winnipeg. That's by the Liberal government. It's government project, government built, not the syndicate, not the private company. So McDonald had this national policy. The national policy is really try to, one is have the industrial revolution, okay, try to build a manufacturing in Canada, and the Pacific Railway is needed for settlement to the west, settlement into Paris. Okay, later we have all these Ukraine immigrants settled there to make it our basket of the bread for the war, right? It's rich. It's rich. Without this railway is impossible. Now, most difficult thing is the Fraser Canyon. Okay, Fraser Canyon is we have a contract to the Onderdam, Andrew Onderdam. Okay, Andrew Onderdam. He built some some pub. He takes some contract for the American transcontinental railway. So he know that. At that time, it's not. They don't have the labor. Okay, we know after the Civil War, all those labor from the planetary, okay, the slave they become free. However, they really cannot work on the railway. It's not really just labor. It have to be cooperation. Have something. They know now. The same thing happened. Okay, before they don't want to use Chinese, and they use the Irish, right? The Irish, because Ireland have the female and many Irish just come to here and do the labor. Okay, Irish, and they cannot use this black man. Apprentice them. Okay, the black man march to the Washington because they are free, but they don't get the job. They don't have job. Okay, they don't have the job. But it's only the Chinese is somehow is a very special tool. Okay, it's a labor tool. It's like a mega project, like I don't know why. It's like the Great Wall. Okay, you know her now. Right now you see so many mega projects in China, and the two railway, okay, in North America, one is the Pacific, one is the transcontinental railway. It's all depend on this Chinese labor. Chinese labor is like somehow I cannot explain, but on the Dong know it, okay, because he do the project in America. He tried many different labors. He not only not works. That's why he used that. Okay. Now the Rockies is very difficult because it's the mountain, the valleys, and all the no. So it's like he drew 4 tunnels for 2.5 kilometers for 1.5 years. Okay, and the Perry went home is the general manager. Okay, and on the dot is the contractor to build the most dangerous section. This is the one who hired the Chinese railway workers. In this section, in our first part, from this all the way to Calgary, and it's by Van Horn. It's use the Irish and Ukraine or whoever the European laborers. So we know this. If you take the ship from Macau to BC, maybe at that time you take you maybe 3 months, 2 months. Okay. However, if you really want to travel from here to BC, maybe you can never cross the Rockies. So I think the European is really go south from United States, then along the Pacific shore coast, and go up to BC. So that's why at that time there are many Chinese in BC. And his history they know like Angel Underdong. They like Chinese workers. Okay, they like Chinese workers. Chinese workers is honor their contract. Okay, they say, okay, I'll do this job, and they really do it. Okay, they really do it. It's the Chinese pay maybe just half. Okay, half the payment as they pay for other laborers. However, they can build many excellent jobs. Okay, excellent job. If you don't know, at that time you don't have the heavy machine. Yeah. I used to work in a factory in Guangzhou. Okay, the older workers tell me many stories about these Chinese workers, because the Chinese workers come from Guangdong province, my hometown. Okay, my hometown at the Guangdong. So we all have those stories. Like they have many tricks. They're very initiative. Okay, they don't say, okay, you tell me what to do and I'll do it. It's not like that. That's why the Chinese labor say they tell you what you shall accomplish. Then they try to figure out how to solve the problem. How to solve the problem. They really have some
Innovation.
yeah, like they have heavy material try to move, and in that time you use horse, you cannot move them because it's so steep and on the hill or something, and they wait for the winter, they pour the water and become ice, and they push on the ice and something. And they hang the basket from the cliff, okay, and drill the hole and put the powder in and do those engineer. It's very very difficult and risky, and also need some skill, need many skill. Okay, so that's why they cannot use. If you use other labor, the black people, they used to work in the planetary, they don't have this skill. They don't have this skill and idea how to solve those problems. So this is the word the Surgeon A. MacDonald said in the parliament, okay? Because at that time, there's some sentiment against using Chinese railway workers. So the Surgeon A. MacDonald, so they argue, it's a question of alternative. Either you must use this labor, or you cannot have the railway. It is a fact, okay? It's really a fact. It's like if you try, because they try, it's proof, didn't work. Have to use the Chinese labor. They try to use other labor, but cannot work. Okay, they just go there. If you say,
Trains on cue.
you say, okay, you do this. They say how to do that. You tell one thing to do, they follow you exactly like you order. It will not work. It will not work. Okay, it's like you have to stick there to think how to do that. It's not easy. Okay, only the worker, they have the initiative, they know how to use the tool, they solve the problem. That's how it works. Now, this is the things I say. At that time, we know history is different. Okay, and that time is the coolie is like a contract slave, the Chinese laborers. Okay, like a contract slave, and we use them. Okay, we use them, exploit them. However, I think we should give back their basic human dignity. Okay, that's one thing. Other things are, I think, for our, if we really want to be patriot to Canada, we have to honor the people who lost their life in building our nation. That's what I think. Okay. Otherwise, you cannot say how people can be patriot, right? So that's why I say I really want. Right now, I know because the railway is play so important role in our nation building and our industrial revolution. we have many museums across the country, okay, but for railway, for the steam engine. Okay. However, few of them really mention Chinese railway workers. Yeah, that's what. That's I finished here. Okay, so that's I think it's a significant. It's a history is very significant enough for us to have a historical site in Bonfield.
I want to say something from our perspective to support what you just said about the difference of Chinese laborers versus other laborers. I ran business schools in Beijing, and one of the programs I had was an MBA program with University in Edinburgh. We did the MBA program of theirs, but I delivered it in Beijing. And one time in the first year, some professors came over from Edinburgh to see whether our students were adapting to the MBA program from Edinburgh University. And it was a Saturday morning, and there were students in a classroom, and they gave these students a problem to solve. And we were standing out in the hall. There was a glass window looking into the classroom. So the students were in there, no teacher, and they were given this problem to solve. And we were standing in the hall, my director and I, and the professors from Edinburgh. And after about 30 minutes, the professors of Edinburgh said to me, "There's something wrong here." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because they should be doing something." I said, what would happen in Edinburgh? He said, somebody would have stood up at the front of the class and taken charge and said, "Okay, here's the problem. What do we need to do?" And he said, "Nobody's done that." I said, "No, that's not how they work." So I said, "Just give it a minute." And about 10 minutes later, somebody stood up, and they all stood up, and they started yelling out solutions, and they were writing all over the board. Everybody was writing all over the board. And at the end, bang, there was the solution. And he said, my professor from Edinburgh, he said, "How did they do that?" It was a very different way of thinking. They didn't want to be told, "This is what you should do," or "This is how you get to the solution." It was very different. And I've never forgot that. That they approached a problem very, very differently. And I've often said that if I came back to Canada and I started my own company, I would want all of my employees to be Chinese, because the work ethic, all my students in all my schools, they were there 7 days a week, learning language, learning the programs. The work ethic was something I've never seen before. So I just wanted to support what you just said about the difference between Chinese laborers and other labor sources.
I also took my MBA in Queen's University. Okay, so I have my MBA. So that's why I teach some business course. Okay, and I have a 2 year as a professor in economic department in Guizhou University, and I also work as an apprentice in factory in China. Okay, in China, and I know the management and the employee relationship, the labor relationship, is in China is different from here. Okay, so here is like the management put the order. Okay, the employee had to obey every order to execute this job, right? But in China, it's like in here the union and the management team is like a conflict. Okay, they hide the information. Okay, I have information, I don't tell them, because you tell them, then in the negotiation you lost, right? But in China, I work there, it's totally different. Okay, the management team and the employee is just like one in solve problem, because usually if the management team when they went to when the Chinese go to the Africa, okay, the African never amazing, okay, because this manager, they really can do put the hand. If there's something on the field have problem, they do the labor, okay, and they do the overtime. It's not just the employee. The manager himself also do that. Okay, it's like a more equal respect. Respect the people. Respect the employee as a human. Okay, they have some discretion, decision on the field. That even the lowest labor. Okay, so when I work in the factory in China, okay, the work my master, okay, because I apprentice, right, I learned something. They always tell me it's like the 2nd and 16th, okay, it's every month, okay, is the Chinese calendar. The 1st of the month and the 15th of the month is the worship for the some spirit of gods or ancestors. Okay, when you offer the sacrifice to worship, and the next day they spread this to the employee. Okay, so they always say, oh, that's the best day for they always wishing for that day. Okay, the 2nd and the 16th. They want the 2nd and 16th. So you know the relationship is different. Okay, so right now because the culture different. Okay, so many media here, okay, say, oh, the Chinese have the sweat labor or something. They do have the sweat labor. However, those are from the Western MBA management. Okay, not model goes in. It's by the if the investment is from Hong Kong and from Taiwan, and that's really use this Western model, and from the mainland, those businessmen, they have totally different management style. Okay, totally different. So you see that they say, okay, you pay this worker very mean salary, but it's really all the salary the worker don't need to use now. They provide lodge, they provide food. Okay, the we call peasant worker. Okay, the migrant workers from the poor countryside. Okay, they own the salary. They buy some clothes and something, and rest remit back to the family in countryside. Something. Okay, you say, okay, their salary is so low. However, they provide for food and lodge and something. It's different things. Different things. Some calculation is different. Yeah.
Well, in keeping with your presentation, and we haven't done a great deal of work to try to commemorate the first spike. I mean, we've done some research and we've reached out to the government for an official designation, but your commemoration of Chinese contribution is more than welcome, I guess is what I'm saying to you. Is anything that we do going forward, we'd be happy to include that as part of the project. So any work you can do with us or for us to help move that along further is very helpful.
I'd like to work with you together to try to push this project. I really want to, because it's not, I don't want to say it's for the Chinese railway worker. What I really want to say is, regardless whoever contribute to our country, regardless they're European or Chinese or indigenous people, we should recognize them, right? If we don't recognize them, okay, that's we call discrimination. Okay, so if they have this contribution, and we have to recognize them, If it is European, we recognize now. If it is Chinese, we recognize now. We cannot ignore now because they are Chinese. That's what I think. Okay, it's not say for Chinese, it's really for Canadian multiculturalism.
Yes.
Okay, if we say multiculturalism, we say we inclusive. We say we really blind on race or color or religion. Okay, we just have one standard. If you contribute to Canada, then we recognize that, regardless your color, your race, your religion, or whatever. That's what I want to say.
And further to that, and in keeping with your presentation, from the limited amount of television documentaries and things I've seen, certainly British Columbia was the challenge in building a railway. There's no two ways about that. When you have to go through a mountain to make your train pass, you know. But my father was a railway worker, and Doug was, and we all have a very strong connection here to the railway. And what we take for granted in 2018 is maintaining that track and keeping a train on the track is a lot less labor intensive than it was even 30 years ago, because the section workers 30 years ago, it was a hard physical labor job. But 100 years ago, it is almost the equivalent of being a soldier in the army. Like it's almost a punishment to be a railway worker 100 years ago. You know, like it was terrible physically demanding work. So anything we could do to work towards commemorating that, as you say, for all people who contributed to that would be helpful.
It's a part of the tradition that we shouldn't let it to wane and let it die.
Yeah, we're almost like my generation who can understand it, but going forward, there's no appreciation of that work. No.
Exactly.
So that's what we need to get on top of.
It's to echo what.
Actually, I understand that some people are afraid of the stigma for the colonialism or imperialism because these things. Okay. However, I tell you, if we ignore those, we have to emphasize the positive of our history, right? If they contribute, I would prefer to emphasize the Chinese workers' contribution to our building than emphasize what they suffer by the prejudice and discrimination. Okay, so that's the negative side. I will try to emphasize the positive side. That can unite our country. Otherwise, we always have some friction between race and culture. Right? I tell you, in China, China built the railway to Tibet. Okay, it's very difficult. And build a railway in the southwest from Yunnan province to Sichuan province. In building those railway, many people die, as much as this the Pacific Railway. The same. Many people die. However, they get the honor. Okay, if it not we exploit them, but they do risk their life to build this project. Okay, it's a benefit for many people, for the economy, for the countries. That's what we should recognize. Yeah.
Good. Just on the time to.
Oh yes.
Yeah. It's almost 3.
Is it possible, or we can maybe you can introduce more details about the work of the project, so Dr. Bo can see what he can help.
Do you have something?
I am a new business person to Bonfield area. And my father did his apprenticeship on the railroad, and our family has an awful lot of railway artifacts and things. So when I heard about this, I said that I would like to, if we were going to have some committee or something, and I would like to be part of it and see. I also have some connections with the tourism, culture, and sport ministry that we can maybe explore some ideas with them as well, because they're very helpful in these types of situations. That's why I'm here tonight.
We can include.
Well, I'm just so happy that we were able to do this today. I was excited when I talked to Bo about meeting you all, and because I was curious as to what what information you bring to us and how we might help, because with the part of my life that's in China, I knew all about the role that the Chinese played in the National Railway, but I've never heard it so succinctly put in such a short period of time. That should be a piece of history in every class in Canada. So I'd love to be able to help. And as the mayor has said, there hasn't been a lot done. There was a first spike committee in 2008, and they were going to make application to Parks Canada, and that didn't happen. And then I sort of by default picked it up a year and a half ago, because I thought it was important that it be recognized. So, and then Lisa and I have talked briefly. Maybe it's time, Your Worship, that we could talk about how we might do that. Maybe there's maybe it's timely that perhaps a committee is formed to help out with this. I have an idea for a different approach now to take with Parks Canada that will encourage me to do that, to get that process moving. But while that's going on at the same time, I think there are some things that we could do to recognize other aspects of this, as the mayor just said. Not just the first spike, but there's some other issues around that I think would be appropriate to have part of that. So. Said I can't offer you any specifics at the moment, but I'd like to talk to the mayor and Lisa and the council about maybe we can provide more of a structure as to how we might do that and where you might be involved.
Where does Bill Love fit in here?
Well, Bill gave me some information, and of course they're involved with a project in North Bay with an engine there. So what I've said to him is that once we get official designation, that there may be some other things that on tourism that you mentioned that we might want to explore once that's done. And he said he'd love to be involved in doing that. There's a group in North Bay that are working to restore. It's an old engine, yeah, and they have plans at some point in time that grandiose plans nonetheless, but plans to maybe operate a line to bring that engine down to Bonfield and back, or down to Mattawa. So there's a number of community niches out there that might get involved once we know where we're going.
On the first spike committee, you said they stopped their work. And what is the reason? And in order to apply this historic site successfully, which part do you think it's a difficult part or it's a challenge?
Well, I mean, we've already applied. The mayor sent a letter to Parks Canada about a year and a half ago, and it sort of stalled, bogged down, because they wanted us to provide more evidence or more specific information about where. And that's when I started talking to CPR in Calgary about helping me to do that, because I knew there was at least one other site. The gentleman that the mayor mentioned, Mr. Rose, has talked to me about the site that you're going to see. I don't think there's a challenge with the information that I now have. I will get back to Parks Canada and say, look, here's what we've got put together. You tell me specifically what else we would need to complete the application, because it has to go to the board. But as I said, when I talked to them a year and a half ago, they knew we were coming eventually. They know about it. It's not like we have to prove that it was done here. They just want to know where. But I think the mayor, he said earlier that I don't think that would be an issue with him. They would simply say, look, it is Bonfield, so where the designation is, you can determine that, you can make that wherever you want, but I do believe that there are people, Chinese tourists that might come, or railway buffs, of which there are tens of thousands in Canada, or the States, would also like to go to the actual site that you want to look at today. But I don't think there's really any challenge. I need to move this forward now with Parks Canada, now that I have some new ideas about how to go about that.
But in answer to your question, the committee that was working in 2008 got a grant to hire a consultant, a small grant, $20,000 I think it was at the time, to do some of the documentation of the project. But the committee started to fight a little bit about how they would spend the money and didn't agree on different points of view, so it got put away and that ended the fighting. But a lot of those players are not involved anymore anyway. Some are deceased now and so on, so it's time that it can be brought back forward. Their disappointment was the consultant told them at the time, and I mean, you don't get an expert consultant for $20,000, so we take that with a bit of respect in knowing that. He said, well, I can't tell you where the first spike was. You know, he threw his hands up in the air and said, if you're going to argue about it, I'm done here, and that was that. So it got put away. and I guess in answer to your question, why have we not did more to now? It's not like we have competition. So when you have no competition, sometimes you just don't do anything. You know, we're the first spike. We're always going to be the first spike, and maybe we don't promote that enough, and that's something we should do now, because before it loses its impression on the younger generations of how important building that railroad was. Nowadays, if a mayor gave an order and said, I want a road there and I want it now, we'd bring in big equipment, and in 3 weeks we'd have a trail and we'd be making a road. It took physical human labor and animal labor and engineering and everything else 100 and some years ago, 133 years ago, to build a railway. So that's all lost on us today with this stuff in our pocket. So that's where we've got to start to commemorate that before the impression gets lost, I guess.
No, the mayor's right. I mean, I haven't been as energetic on this as perhaps I should. I was getting frustrated with Parks Canada, but the mayor's right. You sort of get into this malaise because we are the first spike. I keep saying there's only 2 municipalities in Canada that have that iconic position in our national history. They can't take that away from us. That's who we are. But we didn't do enough to promote it. I'm re-energized again here. But I had to be fair to Bonfield, I had the same discussion 10 years ago in Gravenhurst, because there was not a lot of enthusiasm to recognize Dr. Bethune. Not at all. There was that stigma that was mentioned earlier. I said to them, I said, do you think, I went to council, I said, do you think that if you said to any municipality in Canada, you know, we can package all this up, the history and everything, and give it to you. Do you think you'd like to take that? I said there wouldn't be very many that would say no. You've got it, and you're just letting it lie there. Nothing's happening with it.
The third,
sorry
to cut you off. The third point is we are no longer the Transcontinental Railway, because it goes to Toronto now and now to Montreal. So CP Rail made this just a short line railroad. So that's part of the reason the railway company that had leased the track from CP Rail in 2000, prior to 2008, wasn't friendly to work with either. Like when we said we have some ideas that we want to maybe make this a tourism thing, and they said, nah, we're not interested in that. And at the end of the day, as you, in your presentation, it's a private company, you know.
Yeah.
So when you go to a private company and say, I got this great idea, I want to bring tourists, I want to build a commemoration, and they say, I'm not really interested, stay off my land, that throws up a roadblock too. I think as it's turned out, the company that is running this now is more friendly to that type of thing, or I hope they would be anyway. But again, it's all in how you're asked a lot of times too. So I think if we approach them and say, we want to bring some recognition to this now, and ask them nicely, I think they'd be much more cooperative. But 10 years ago, they were not. They were leave us alone. We don't want the bother of all that.
Right now, the railway didn't pass here. You say it's from. Well, how is tall right now?
There's one train a day, and
Uh-huh.
it just went by a little while ago, and it'll come back about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
But it goes to Temiskaming in Quebec, and turns around and comes back to serve a pulp and paper mill up there.
It's called the Ottawa Valley Railway now.
Yeah.
OVR.
From where to where passing here?
Well, from Sudbury to Temiskaming, Quebec.
From Sudbury to.
Yeah, but the track from Mattawa, which you had mentioned earlier, to Ottawa has been removed. There's no more track.
It's not there.
No.
When you say when we are no longer the transcontinental railway from when?
Well, the track was only removed from Mattawa to Ottawa 2.5 years ago. But it was unused for probably 8 or 9 years before that. So for a decade, since 2008 roughly, we're still connected to the transcontinental railway, but you'll never see like a freight train from Vancouver to Montreal ever going through here again because the track infrastructure
So
is
you
gone.
go to Toronto, right now?
Yes.
From
Sudbury to Toronto to Montreal.
Sudbury, Toronto.
Yeah.
You know, and it's interesting that those facts that the mayor just mentioned. When I was talking to the manager of the archives for CPR in Calgary, he mentioned to me, he said, you know, there was a competition within CPR 2 months ago to give a name to the #1 car on the CPR main line. The car that the president of CPR and the chairman of CPR uses when he travels across Canada. He said, we want to put a name on it. So we had a competition within CPR, and the unanimous name was Bonfield. So this car now has a metal plaque on it that says Bonfield. And but the reason I'm telling you this is because he said, you know, how about this? He said, next time we're through on the line, you know, we can arrange for your mayor to meet the line and we'll have some pictures and so on and so on. He called me back an hour later, he said, oh, I forgot, we don't go there anymore. We don't go there anymore. So, he didn't know either. But the car does exist. And as I said, it's now been commissioned as the Bonfield car and has a nice plaque on it, which is really very very cool. Yeah.
Did you ever ask him to send you a picture of that car?
Yeah, he said that they were doing some reconditioning on it, and he was going to take a picture sometime this month and send it to us. Yeah.
When I had asked for one of the conferences we went to, I had asked to, quite a few years ago, we had the Christmas train.
Yeah.
And there was country singers, well-known country singers, and they came right on the track here and went to, and at one of our conferences they were talking about the Christmas train, and I asked, you know, being that we're the first spike, if they would come and come back again. And the two companies, CN and the CP, both said that they don't come on our track anymore. So that was the end of
You
our
can't get there
Christmas
anymore
train.
from here. Right.
Yeah.
You have to go turn around at Temiskaming and come back.
So that was too bad.
Yeah, that would have been one of the last occasions where from Ottawa, they were in Ottawa making their way westward, and they had stopped here, yeah.
Yeah, the last year, I think.
Yeah.
Twice they stopped, but the last year that they came through before they took track of it.
If you just want to pick up one location as the first site, historic site, but there's 2 or 3 groups which they have disagreement, if you just pick up one, will it be an issue for them or?
No, I think in the community, nobody cares or is not going to argue strongly one place or the other. It was if I can, and I wasn't on that committee, but if I can read what they were trying to do, some of them were saying it's got to be exactly where it was supposed to be. You know, even if it's in the middle of the bush and nobody can get there, that's where it's got to be, or else we're lying. And other people are saying, yeah, but when you build a museum, you don't build it on the side of a mountain, you build it below the mountain and say it was up there, you know. So that's what I think they're trying to find a compromise, and they couldn't. So I think if we were to build a commemorative building or a plaque or anything, we should put it where you can get in and out easily with a tour bus or something to look at it, and say if you physically want to see the exact piece of ground, it's 2 kilometers east of here or wherever, you know. But I think the argument about it being exactly where it is over, because nobody's for certain either. Like, it could have been 50 feet this way or 50 feet that way. Who drove the first one? We don't know. That was a long time ago. So, you know, that type of thing. But I think that fight is over. If we picked a spot, I think everybody would be happy just to have a spot, even if it's perhaps technically incorrect slightly, you know.
So before you go to the site, first of all, I just want to thank you all for coming here. It's been fascinating for me, and I want to thank the Deputy Mayor and the Mayor and Lisa for coming. And I think that we've agreed that we'll work together. The process as to how we do that, we can talk over the next few days or weeks. As to how we do that. I think we have some ideas about how we can expand that role. And I'll do everything I can, and I know the mayor will, to make sure that happens, because I think it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, we can put the main list, okay, 4 or 5 us in the main list to come in. Yeah, email.
Put the information.
Yeah.
Good. Once again, I can't thank you enough for all of you coming up and giving us that wonderful piece of history. You said it so well.
Had you mentioned that the BBC had come here 2 years ago? Were you here?
2 years ago? Yes, I
When the
was.
fellow from the BBC come here and wanted to do a film documentary on their behalf of the exact same subject, and was so disappointed, maybe like you are, to find, oh, you're not transcontinental anymore, you know. So like, he was expecting to see a train go by every 15 minutes, and it just doesn't happen anymore.
I think we should, the first thing we should do is contact some university, okay, let them do some field works on that side, okay, collect some artifact, and later our exhibition cannot just language put on the wall, have to have some artifact there, right?
Visuals.
Yeah, and that's the end. Whatever the conclusion, we have to tell the story about the process, how we find these things, okay? Whether we find we found the exactly spot or not, we have to tell the story. We try this and try to collect this information and put in the help people will know now, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
We'll just show the public the process, how we...
Yeah, we say, okay, we know this, what we know, what we don't know, what we try to find out, and what we found and do the exhibition, and then together with some other material, what's the significance of this railway for our nation and our industrial revolution, right? And also mention those people who died for building this. That's That's the,
Dr. Xiaoming, you used a very interesting word, story. I mean, I'm a very, very proud Canadian, as I can tell you are. And one of the things that we don't do well is we don't tell stories. Canadians are always looking to the States or Britain and saying, why can't we have a history like they do? Theirs is so interesting, ours is so boring. It's not. The reason why they think that is because we don't tell those stories.
right.
Make it attractive.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
That's a fascinating story. the way
Generate
you
the
put it.
curiosity from the public.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's why we have to first step, I think, is contact some archaeologists in the university and convince them to get the grant to do the project, bring some students and do the field works, okay, collect some artifact and identify those things, and they will research on this archive in the library or in the company, okay. It's I think maybe we should find something from Canada Central Railway when they try to build from Markworm to Nipissing, okay. So what's the time and how fast is their project progress, and when the CPR take over, and that's the point, okay, not the spot. We can narrow down it's where. We cannot say exactly that side, but we can tell it's in that section. We can do that.
Well, again, it's arguable, but we can tell within a kilometer, we
Right.
think, of where
Right.
it is, right
Right.
now, without
Yeah.
the archaeological evidence, but
Yeah.
there again, I wasn't there 133 years ago.
Well, it's great to make a story.
Yeah, well, that's right, and if you tell it often enough, they'll believe it anyway, so that's all that matters, yeah.
Good, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Lisa,
Yes.
I'll call Jeff.
Back in
And this here, right?
just not that it means anything, but this is my farm here, one of them.
Okay.
And this is what we call Choke Pond Road and Pine Lake Road, which are major roads coming off of Highway 17. And then, as you see, the track takes a big turn through the bush. So the closest we could get to it is there. And to walk is quite a distance. They believe the first spike is right in and around here somewhere. And it's just a heavily forested area. There's not, now that I see it on the picture, there's not much to see by walking there. But
No, I think it'd be you wouldn't see him.
Well, it's gonna get dark soon and it's
Yeah.
wet.
But, I mean, it's not something we couldn't do another day better, but that significance right there is about where the people think that the works were done.
So it's down in there behind Morris to get.
Yep, because there's a house here, and a new house, and these artifacts are being found here.
So what's this?
That's a proposed new 4-lane highway that's supposed to go through the municipality
Proposed the new highway is
at some point in time, yeah.
4 lanes.
or 4 lane.
Yeah.
What is the number of the highway if it's built?
Not determined yet, yeah. It would be a continuation of the 417, I guess.
That's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
from Ottawa.
Yeah. But I mean, I can take you out, and we'll go to this intersection
Okay.
and look
Then
down
we
the
walk.
tracks towards there, and then I'll take you right in this person's driveway, just to kind of give you the bearings. Like the track is some distance behind his house, but
Okay.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a closer picture.
I can give you an aerial photo of that, right?
yeah.
Okay, I can give you one off my GIS.
Oh, yeah?
Sure I can.
Yeah. Is it email? Can you email them?
I think so.
Email later.
I'm gonna wait just for a second, I'll show you.
site actually is a proposed industrial development down there, sawmill, old sawmill. Yet it hasn't materialized. But yeah, as you see, like as you follow further down into the bush, for the sake of having a commemorative site, it wouldn't be ideal. You know, we'd probably be better to have it either out of the highway here or in Bonfield or somewhere.
Yep. Accessibility.
Accessibility.
Yeah, accessibility is not that great.
But there is, as I said, significant evidence to indicate that that's what their marshalling yard, they call it, right? So, yeah, was involved, but they probably had a blacksmith shop there to keep the horses shoed while they were building the track.
So the city collects some surface like the spike and horseshoe.
Well, up until 5 years ago, we didn't know they were there either, until this fellow started to dig around in there and found them.
Does these guys send some
Oh, he could, yeah. No, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
I think his concern when he found it was, what else am I going to find? Is there a cemetery here? Is there what else? You know, you never know.
Yes.
So, that type of thing.
Yesterday, the 400-year-old part of the Quebec City Citadel they found intact.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I heard
Intact,
the news.
like it was yesterday.
Yeah. Yes,
Yeah, they uncovered it.
I heard it. Yes. Yeah.
It's amazing. All that time, he's still there. Who knows what might be under that side
Oh,
of
that's
the river,
right. Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I do have my other meeting I have to get to, but it was great to meet with you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you all coming. Thank you. Well, I'll let him lead you back to where you need to go. Are you staying in North Bay tonight? Or
We can go ourselves. Yeah.
we'll go
Well,
back.
I just want to make sure when you've got GPS.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're going to head back towards Bonfield. You keep going until you see Highway 94. There's a McEwen gas station there. Turn left.
Yep.
We'll take you right out to what's that? That Cordell Road?
That's where they come through because they saw Cal.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then it'll say North Bay this way or Calendar. You turn that, you follow down, and you'll see the Highway 11.
I think we can. We can.
We have GPS.
Yeah. We have GPS.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was actually my grandfather's.
Yeah. Because he worked for CPR.
Back in the 1920s.
Your daddy works for First American, right?
A bit, yeah. No, I didn't personally. I worked for it years ago. The real important part of that is the steam engine on the back. That's the real important part. That's the real important part right there.
I need like professional cameras to really see the details.
Pardon? 4:05. 5 minutes ago. I've had this phone in the jungle in Vietnam, no problem. In this building, no.